On planet Earth, there are places where the boundary between reality and the impossible becomes blurred. In these locations, landscapes and space form in ways that seem unbelievable, far beyond familiar human experience. Each place carries its own distinct character, creating the impression of observing another world existing alongside the one we know. Alongside natural wonders, the planet also holds human-made structures whose scale and design go far beyond what was once considered possible. Most of these places are scattered across the globe, many of them remote and rarely reached. This is Impossible World, a journey to 100 unbelievable places on planet Earth that do not seem real, yet exist clearly in reality. Huku Waterfall is the only golden waterfall on the planet where a massive river is squeezed into a narrow canyon, creating a giant crushing machine with a sound like thunder. The Yellow River at Huku carries the highest sediment density in the world, with 37 kilograms of silt per cubic meter of water. The flow rate can reach up to 8,000 cubic meters per second, equivalent to thousands of heavy trucks plunging into the gorge at the same time. Scientists have discovered that this waterfall is moving upstream by about 1 meter per year due to the power of the water eroding the rock at the base of the falls. Although almost no creatures can survive in the waterfall's torrents, the legendary carp transformed into a dragon remains a symbol of survival in this incredibly harsh environment. At the peak of winter, the flow's width is squeezed from about 165 feet to less than 65 feet, as ice encroaches from both banks and accumulates into large frozen blocks. The Red Beach is an impossible wonder, spanning tens of square miles without a single grain of sand, instead being entirely carpeted by a biological rug as crimson as blood. In an environment with such extreme salt and alkaline levels, the Sueda salsa grass proudly thrives through a unique mechanism of consuming salt to grow and create this surreal hue. This harsh world also hides an army of billions of fiddler crabs acting as silent geological engineers to help circulate air beneath the thick mudflats. Despite its massive scale, humans remain outsiders who are only permitted to observe less than 1% of the area from elevated boardwalks to protect the pristine ecosystem. It is hard to believe that these wetlands have the capacity to sequester carbon 10 times more effectively than tropical rainforests of the same size on Earth. Shan is one of the 4 sacred Buddhist mountains of China and is identified as a religious site associated with Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. The mountain stands on the edge of the Sichuan continental margin, where steep cliffs form due to long-term tectonic uplift and erosion processes. Shan is a recognized location for observing the Brocken spectre, an optical phenomenon where a human shadow appears magnified and surrounded by a diffraction halo in dense mist. Ancient builders constructed large religious structures using metal materials on steep rock faces at elevations of around 9,800 feet under persistent fog conditions. The highest peak of Shan rises above 9,800 feet and frequently experiences snowfall in winter despite the surrounding subtropical climate. The mountain supports more than 3,200 plant species, including ancient lineages such as ginkgo and primitive gymnosperms that have survived since prehistoric eras. Saturnia Hot Springs is located in the Tuscany region of Italy and functions as a fully natural geothermal hot spring system formed without human intervention. The system maintains a constant flow of about 800 liters per second at a stable temperature of approximately 99.5 degrees Fahrenheit for more than 3,000 years. The structure consists of tiered white limestone pools created by continuous mineral deposition over thousands of years. Because the water temperature remains higher than the surrounding air, steam regularly rises from the pool surfaces, especially during early mornings and winter. The high discharge rate allows the water in the pools to be completely renewed every few hours, maintaining hygienic conditions even during periods of heavy use. Landmannalauga is a volcanic highland region of Iceland, defined by multicolored rhyolite mountains and vast black lava fields shaped by intense volcanic activity. The slopes display yellow-red, orange-green and blue tones caused by sulfur deposits, oxidized iron, and silica-rich rhyolite minerals within the rock. The area contains an open-air natural hot spring with water temperatures ranging from about 97 to 104 degrees Fahrenheit, allowing bathing without artificial infrastructure. Across the wide plateau, rare mountain shelters are engineered to withstand extreme winds and the heavy snow loads that cover the region for roughly 9 months each year. Beyond the valleys lie the Laugahrán lava fields, formed during the eruption of 1477, leaving rugged basalt surfaces that surround the hiking paths. While walking through the area, hikers frequently encounter sulfur vents, releasing white steam and hydrogen sulfide gas from the geothermal system below. Mount Chimera, also known as Yanartash, is a limestone hillside along the Mediterranean coast where natural flames continuously emerge directly from rock fissures. This phenomenon is caused by methane and light hydrocarbons seeping from deep underground, igniting upon contact with oxygen through metallic mineral catalysts in the rock. The gas vents are fixed in position on the slope and have remained active for more than 2,500 years, according to ancient historical records. Temperatures at the rock openings often reach several hundred degrees Fahrenheit, high enough to boil water and cook food on exposed stone surfaces. Although the flames burn year-round, they do not spread into surrounding forests because the gas escapes only through specific geological fractures. The Shenzhen-Zhongshan link is a cross-sea connection system approximately 15 miles long that directly links Shenzhen and Zhongshan in Guangdong Province, China. Before this infrastructure existed, travel between the two cities required a detour around the human area and took about 2 hours, while the new route reduces the journey to roughly 20 to 30 minutes. The project is not a single bridge, but an integrated system combining sea bridges, artificial islands, and a sub-sea tunnel. The western artificial island covers about 1.47 million square feet and uses an aerodynamic shape to reduce Pearl River currents while providing a stable transition between the bridge and the tunnel. The subsea tunnel segment holds the record as the widest prefabricated, reinforced concrete tunnel in the world, carrying 8 opposing traffic lanes and demonstrating a scale beyond conventional transportation structures. Dettifoss is a waterfall in northern Iceland, known as the most powerful waterfall in Europe, with a water flow equal to about 80 large bathtubs every second. Its water originates from the Vatnajökull glacier, so it is essentially meltwater from ice formed thousands of years ago, creating a cold, sediment-rich flow. The mist column above Dettifoss can rise hundreds of feet and can be seen from more than 6 miles away under clear conditions. The force of the water erodes the surrounding cliffs, causing the waterfall to retreat upstream by roughly 10 inches each year. Instead of green forests, the area around Dettifoss is dominated by a black basalt desert, where almost no large plants can survive, creating a stark, monochrome landscape. The overwhelming sound of the waterfall once inspired Icelandic composer Jon Leifs to write a full symphonic work titled Dettifoss to capture its intensity. SunKran is one of Russia's deepest hellmouths, home to a permanent ice mass and frozen waterfalls that never melt even in the middle of summer. No one can walk into the cave because the only entrance is a vertical shaft as deep as a 30 to 40-story building. The cave has a 3-tiered structure with the upper level dry and covered in ice, while the lowest level holds an underground river system flowing in perpetual darkness. Some waterfalls inside freeze instantly as they fall, forming massive crystal-clear ice columns. The total tunnel length reaches nearly 6 miles, forming a massive limestone maze where inexperienced explorers can easily get lost. In several sections, submerged rivers force cavers to dive through narrow, lightless siphons to reach adjacent chambers. Mont Saint-Michel is known as the marvel of the Western world, perched on a massive granite outcrop surrounded by ocean and featuring the highest and most dangerous tidal range in Europe. Although it welcomes millions of visitors each year, the number of permanent residents remains under 30, including a few households and monastic dwellers. The entire structure is vertically stacked in a pyramid layout. At the base are ramparts and homes, in the middle are grand halls, and at the top stands the abbey, with St. Michael's sword raised skyward. At the island's base lie the salt marshes, the only known habitat of Pre-Salé sheep, a breed that survives by grazing on salt-infused grass rich in marine minerals. The shape of Mont Saint-Michel directly inspired the design of Rapunzel's castle in the animated film Tangled. The Sea of Blue Tears stands as one of the most breathtaking natural phenomena on Earth, where the ocean sheds its pitch-black darkness to explode into surreal neon blue ribbons that look like they belong to another world. This is no faint glow, but a vivid electric blue so intense that the waves appear to be filled with billions of tiny LED lights flickering in the dark. During peak nights, the density of Noctiluca scintillans algae can reach a staggering 1 million cells per about 1 quart of seawater, creating a brilliant dead zone saturated with ammonia toxins for anyone who dares to wade in. Each microscopic cell can only produce a single flash of light, lasting just 1/10 of a second, a final defensive act before vanishing into the void. This event is so massive in scale that a 2019 study confirmed these glowing ribbons are large enough for NASA satellites to track them from miles above in Earth's orbit. Palm Jumeirah is known globally as the 8th wonder of the world, home to ultra-luxury resorts, premium residential towers, and some of the most extravagant entertainment venues. The entire massive island was constructed solely from natural sand and rock, with the sand compacted using specialized vibration technology to create stability without steel or reinforced concrete below the surface. To achieve the perfect palm tree shape in open water, engineers relied on a dedicated military satellite to guide sand-dredging ships instead of using traditional compasses. The amount of sand and rock used to build the island is enough to form a 6-foot-high wall circling the planet 3 times. The project added roughly 48 miles of new coastline, transforming Dubai into a major hub for beachfront leisure. Palm Jumeirah is also home to many world-famous residents, including the David Beckham family, who purchased a villa during the island's early development. The World Islands is one of the most ambitious artificial megaprojects ever built, featuring about 300 small islands arranged loosely in the shape of a world map. The foundation of these islands consists of 321 million cubic meters of dredged sand and 386 million tons of rock, with no steel or concrete used for structural support. Despite their massive appearance, most islands rise only about 13 feet above average sea level, turning the entire development into a scientific gamble against climate change and rising oceans. The estimated cost of completing the basic landform exceeds $14 billion, not including the ultra-luxury villas and resorts planned on top. This project was inspired by the massive success of Palm Jumeirah after Dubai realized that artificial islands could capture the world's attention. Tiger's Nest is a Buddhist monastery complex built directly on a vertical cliff at an elevation of about 10,100 feet above sea level, becoming one of Bhutan's most striking and improbable landmarks. All construction materials, including stone, hardwood, and clay, were carried by people and pack mules along mountain trails less than 3 feet wide during the 17th century. The roof is covered with bright gold plating, and in a high-altitude region where lightning strikes are frequent, placing a conductive structure on a cliff edge became a bold challenge against nature. Tiger's Nest consists of 4 main buildings and 8 meditation caves, some of which are still used by monks who retreat for many years. Along the ascent, thousands of multicolored prayer flags line the path because Bhutanese people believe the wind carries their blessings across the world. In 1998, a major fire destroyed much of the monastery, and restoration efforts were completed in 2005. Kurlingafjall is a place where snow and geothermal heat coexist on a single rhyolite mountain range, creating a landscape where freezing temperatures and boiling temperatures appear side by side within a few hundred feet. Because of the rhyolite rock, the entire area glows in shades of orange, yellow, red, and pink, giving the terrain a Martian appearance. White steam from geothermal vents can rise dozens of feet into the air, filling the space with mist and producing continuous hissing sounds from extreme pressure. This is one of the rare places where thick snow lies directly beside steaming hot springs. The region contains hundreds of boiling mud pits and hot streams with temperatures exceeding 212 degrees Fahrenheit, enough to cook anything that falls in. Despite high sulfur levels and harsh conditions, patches of green moss and wildflowers still manage to grow around the hot streams. Skogafoss is a major waterfall in southern Iceland, measuring about 82 feet wide and roughly 197 feet high, forming an almost rectangular curtain of falling water. The cliff over which Skogafoss plunges represents an ancient Icelandic coastline formed thousands of years ago when the shoreline lay far inland. Geological change and coastal retreat later shifted the modern shoreline about 3 miles outward, leaving the waterfall isolated within the interior landscape. The dense mist produced by the falling water frequently refracts sunlight, creating single or double rainbows under clear conditions. The vertical cliffs surrounding the waterfall support thousands of Atlantic fulmars, which nest directly on the rock faces amid constant moisture and continuous noise. The top of Skogafoss marks the starting point of a well-known trail leading into Iceland's interior highlands, characterized by glaciers and volcanic terrain. Qingdao Bay Bridge is globally known for its massive scale stretching more than 25.8 miles entirely over water across Jiaozhou Bay in China. The bridge connects both sides of the bay without touching land at any intermediate point, forming a continuous marine transport corridor, comparable in length to a full marathon. Construction of this structure consumes about 450,000 tons of steel and more than 81 million cubic feet of reinforced concrete, indicating an unusually high material density for an offshore bridge. The total steel volume equals the structural mass of roughly 65 Eiffel Towers, demonstrating the load-bearing demands placed on the bridge's support system. The roadway follows an S-shaped alignment designed to interrupt prolonged straight driving, reducing driver fatigue in an open sea environment with minimal visual reference points. The Morning Glory spillway is world famous as a giant hole in the water built in 1956. Its name comes from the morning glory flower because the funnel's shape resembles a bloom opening wide on the lake's surface. Water drops freely for about 200 feet, roughly the height of a 20-story building, before exiting through the dam's lower outflow system. At full capacity, this spillway can swallow over 48,000 cubic feet of water per second, enough to drain an Olympic-sized pool in less than 2 seconds. During the dry season, when water levels drop, the exposed hole looks like a giant concrete tube and becomes a hotspot for daredevil skateboarders. In 1997, a woman was pulled into the vortex while swimming and managed to cling to the concrete edge for about 20 minutes before being swept inside. Sumila Monastery is anchored directly to a vertical cliff of the Pontic Mountains in northern Turkey, with its structure positioned entirely outside any natural ground surface. The entire architectural complex is carved into a natural cave at an elevation of approximately 3,900 feet, consisting of a 5-story structure with multiple rooms, corridors, and wooden balconies projecting over a deep gorge. Historical records date the monastery to the 4th century and associate its foundation with accounts of 2 monks originating from Athens who established a religious site at this cliffside cave. The interior functions as a religious and cultural center, containing numerous fresco murals painted directly onto the cave walls and ceilings, depicting scenes from the Bible. The structure has existed for over 1,600 years while remaining exposed to erosion, gravity stress, and seismic activity in a steep mountain environment. Access and restoration require forest trails, cliffside wooden stairways, rope systems, and in modern operations, helicopter transport for materials and equipment. Mendenhall Glacier is a glacier about 19 kilometers long, originating from the Juneau ice field and ending at Mendenhall Lake, and it is one of the few large glaciers accessible by road. The ice at Mendenhall Glacier appears deep blue because the compressed ice absorbs most light wavelengths and reflects mainly blue light. Ice worms live on the surface of the glacier, representing organisms adapted to survive directly within frozen environments. Beneath the surface are ice caves formed by meltwater erosion, with thin ceilings and structures that change continuously over time. These ice caves remain unstable in shape due to constant internal erosion within the glacier body. This ongoing change prevents the ice cave formations at Mendenhall Glacier from remaining identical between different observation periods. Enshi Pingshan Grand Canyon is known as the Seimei of China, famous for the surreal sight of boats appearing to float in mid-air on emerald water so clear it reveals the bottom. Some sections of the gorge stretch 11 miles long, but measure only 5 feet wide, just enough for an adult's arm span, while the cliffs on both sides soar hundreds of feet high. The water shifts color throughout the day, changing from light turquoise to deep emerald green, depending on the sunlight. Its clarity has been scientifically measured at depths of over 50 to 65 feet, allowing the riverbed to be seen like through glass. Because the cliffs are so tall and the gaps so narrow, most of the canyon floor receives direct sunlight for only 15 to 30 minutes each day. Though it has existed for millions of years, the canyon only gained global fame in recent years thanks to viral short videos on social media. The Nazca Lines are a collection of giant geoglyphs created on the desert surface by the Nazca culture between 500 BC and 500 AD. Spread over an area of more than 200 square miles, they include over 800 straight lines stretching for miles and 300 animal and plant figures drawn with near mathematical precision. The geoglyphs depict swallows, monkeys, spiders, orcas, and strange shapes resembling extraterrestrial beings. One of the most iconic figures is known as the astronaut, showing a human-like form, waving and wearing boots. All of these figures are too massive to recognize from the ground and can only be fully seen from the air. The Nazca people made them by clearing away the reddish-brown iron oxide stones to expose the light yellow clay underneath. Thanks to the hyper-arid climate, minimal wind, and virtually no rainfall, the geoglyphs have remained intact for over 2,000 years. The modern Pan-American Highway, the longest road system in the world, cuts through the Nazca Plateau and has permanently damaged several ancient lines. Mount Hua is known as the most dangerous mountain under heaven, featuring razor-sharp granite cliffs and the most precarious wooden plank path in the world. From above, its 5 main peaks spread out like the petals of a giant lotus flower, which is also the origin of the mountain's name. One narrow wooden path, just about 12 inches wide, is bolted directly into the cliffside over the 500 feet high, with no handrails or barriers, only rusted chains to hold on to. Along those chains, thousands of padlocks hang left by locals praying for happiness and health. Some sections are called Stairway to Heaven, where steep stone steps are carved into the mountain at nearly a 90-degree incline. On a hanging rock ledge, there is a small pavilion with a stone chessboard, said to be the place where immortals and emperors once played chess together. Reynisfjara is a black sand beach on the southern coast of Iceland, where the shoreline surface is composed of volcanic ash and rock fragments eroded over long periods of time. The black sand originates from cooled volcanic lava that was gradually broken down by ocean waves and wind over thousands of years. The coastal cliffs at Reynisfjara are formed by hexagonal basalt columns created when lava cooled and contracted evenly under natural conditions. Offshore basalt rock formations rise above the sea surface and are recorded in local cultural traditions as distinctive stone structures. Ocean waves at Reynisfjara exhibit unpredictable surge behavior with sudden, powerful currents that can pull water far inland and back toward the sea. During summer, the steep cliffs in this area serve as nesting sites for thousands of puffins. Sundong is famous as the largest cave in the world, large enough to fit a 40-story skyscraper from New York with room to spare. Thanks to massive dolines that collapsed hundreds of thousands of years ago, a hidden rainforest ecosystem has developed inside, isolated from the outside world. One stalagmite formation called the Hand of Dog rises between 230 and 260 feet tall, far exceeding typical speleothem dimensions. With a volume of about 1.4 billion cubic feet, its underground space equals roughly 15,400 Olympic swimming pools. team of divers who helped rescue the Thai soccer team explored Sơn Duong's underground river and discovered a submerged tunnel 93 meters deep, much wider than earlier estimates. In recent biological surveys, scientists found blind fish and shrimp with transparent crystal-like bodies swimming upstream in total darkness. Lake Retba is located north of the Cape Verde Peninsula and is identified by its biologically produced pink watercolor. The lake is separated from the Atlantic Ocean by a narrow sand dune strip, forming a nearly isolated water system. The pink coloration comes from Dunaliella salina, algae, a salt-tolerant species that thrives in extremely high salinity conditions. This algae produces red pigment to absorb sunlight as salinity increases during the dry season from November to June. Salt concentration in Lake Retba can reach about 40%, allowing the human body to float naturally on the water surface. Local residents harvest salt directly by hand or simple tools while applying shea butter to their skin to reduce salt exposure. Bosco Verticale is a pair of high-rise residential towers in the city of Milan, consisting of one tower standing 364 feet tall and another reaching 249 feet, designed to integrate vegetation into urban architecture. The two towers host approximately 800 trees, 15,000 shrubs, and 5,000 perennial plants distributed across balconies and exterior surfaces. Each apartment in Bosco Verticale contains at least 2 trees, 8 shrubs, and around 40 smaller plants, creating a vertical vegetation layer hundreds of feet above ground level. This plant system helps absorb fine particulate matter, and carbon dioxide, produces oxygen, reduces noise levels, and moderates the local microclimate within the residential area. Tree maintenance at extreme heights is carried out by industrial climbing specialists who rappel from the tops of the towers to prune and replace vegetation. The entire suspended ecosystem depends fully on water pumping and technical control systems, and if these systems fail, the vegetation rapidly deteriorates within a short period of time. Mount Rinjani is a complex volcanic system on Lombok Island, featuring a rare nested volcano structure formed by multiple overlapping eruptions. At the center of this system lies a crescent-shaped crater lake filled with cold water created after major historical eruptions. Within the lake stands a younger active volcanic cone that continuously releases heat and volcanic gases from beneath the Earth's crust. Natural hot springs emerging near the cold lake indicate direct interaction between underground magma and the groundwater system. On nutrient-poor cliffs rich in sulfur gases, Edelweiss plants survive by tolerating strong ultraviolet radiation and extreme temperature variation. A massive eruption of the Mount Rinjani system in the 13th century is linked by climate studies to unusually cold summer conditions across Europe. Stuðlagil Canyon is located in the Jökuldalur Valley in eastern Iceland and was completely concealed by the glacial river Jökulsá-á-Dal for centuries. The canyon is formed by uniform hexagonal basalt columns created when lava cooled and contracted simultaneously under stable thermal conditions. After a hydroelectric dam was constructed in 2009, the river water level dropped significantly and the full structure of the canyon became visible. Stuðlagil Canyon is recorded as having the largest and most concentrated collection of basalt columns in Iceland. Many of the basalt columns here rise between 65 and 98 feet and stand tightly packed along the canyon walls. This area also serves as a nesting site for pink-footed geese, which build nests on steep and slippery basalt columns to avoid land predators. Eldron is a vast lava field formed during a late 18th century volcanic eruption recorded as one of the largest eruptions in human history. The surface of the sharp, black, deadly rock is completely covered by a 30-centimeter thick layer of raccomitrium moss, creating a velvet-like green carpet stretching endlessly. The eruption killed 1/4 of Iceland's population at the time, not by lava, but by a toxic fluoride mist that killed livestock and triggered a famine. During its formation, Eldron's violent lava stream completely engulfed 15 prosperous farms and buried them forever beneath the ground. Fort Munro Road is a mountain pass route carved into the Sulaiman Range in Balochistan, Pakistan, engineered to connect the Punjab Plains with the Fort Munro Plateau. The alignment features steep gradients and repeated zigzag curves designed to overcome major elevation gain within limited horizontal distance. Steel bridge systems are integrated along the route to support heavy vehicles on cliffside sections and maintain operational safety across rugged terrain. Over a travel time of about 30 minutes, ambient temperature can drop from roughly 122 degrees Fahrenheit in low basins to near 50 degrees Fahrenheit on the plateau. The underlying geology consists of compressed rock layers forced into near vertical and twisted orientations by tectonic stress, resulting in unusually high density and hardness. At selected viewpoints, you can observe arid lowlands below, while the roadway itself lies within cool air and intermittent fog. Skútustaðagiga is a well-known site in northern Iceland and attracts geology enthusiasts thanks to its distinctive structures formed by steam explosions at the surface. At first glance, the craters look like real volcanoes, but they contain no lava tubes and were created when underground water was superheated and violently erupted. In summer, The entire area turns lush green, like velvet shifts, to burnt yellow in fall, and becomes covered with pristine white snow in winter. Despite being shaped by chaotic blasts, each crater maintains a surprisingly round and symmetrical profile, rising about 50 to 65 feet above the surrounding ground. Some of the largest craters reach widths of about 165 feet, roughly equal to the length of an Olympic-sized swimming pool. To produce dozens of such perfect craters, the trapped steam would have needed to reach immense pressures, comparable to the force of thousands of localized explosions. "1,000 Trees of Shanghai" is a large-scale commercial complex located along the Suzhou Creek in Shanghai, China, organized into two primary architectural masses. The structure is modeled as twin green mountains within the city, drawing inspiration from the ancient hanging gardens of Babylon and the Huangshan mountain landscape of China. Approximately 1,000 trees from multiple plant groups are planted directly on top of the structural columns, forming a small ecosystem that supports air filtration and urban noise reduction. Unlike traditional architecture that conceals load-bearing elements, this building exposes its structural skeleton with over 1,000 reinforced concrete columns rising from the foundation through the floors to support planting basins above. Each column contains an internal automated irrigation system with moisture sensors embedded in every planter to precisely regulate water delivery to roots without manual human intervention. Blue Lagoon is not a natural lake, but an artificial one, formed in 1976 from the excess geothermal water of the Svartsengi power plant. This unique geothermal water is created from a mixture of 70% seawater and 30% fresh water, drawn from more than 1.2 miles underground. The lagoon holds about 6 million liters of water, and the entire volume is naturally replaced every 48 hours through a continuous cycle. Silica particles in the water reflect sunlight to produce the blue color, but when poured into a clear glass, the water appears milky white. Regardless of snow or freezing winds outside, the water temperature stays stable between 98 and 102 degrees Fahrenheit, similar to an ideal hot bath. Inside the lagoon, there are white silica mud stations where visitors can freely scoop mud to apply on their face for cleansing and brightening without extra cost. Sigiriya is an isolated magma rock rising nearly 656 feet above the central plains of Sri Lanka and is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. On the flat summit of this rock, a royal palace and fortress complex was constructed during the 5th century under the reign of King Kasyapa. All construction materials, including stone, brick, and water, were transported upward through stairways and access routes carved directly into the steep rock face. The main entrance to the fortress was once shaped as a massive stone lion, of which only the 2 enormous stone paws with prominent claws remain at the base today. Thousands of steps carved into the rock body regulate movement toward the summit and restrict access from below. The height and isolated position of Sigiriya allowed the fortress to command extensive views across the surrounding plains. Sanctuary of Madonna della Corona is one of the most hanging churches in the world, carved directly into the steep rock face at an altitude of about 774 feet above sea level. Before this magnificent church, around the year 1000, this site was merely small caves where hermits chose to live completely isolated from the world for meditation. To reach this site, the traditional way, one must climb over 1,500 steps from the valley below. This presents an extreme physical challenge that science still struggles to explain how ancient builders were able to transport tons of material here without machinery. Despite the Boldo Mountains cliffs frequently being affected by landslides and the harsh weather of the Alps, humans have maintained a presence here for over 1,000 years. Even though it sits precariously, the church's facade is adorned with precious marble from the nearby Sant'Ambrogio area, giving it a stunning beauty under the sunlight. Langfossen is located in western Norway and was listed by CNN as one of the world's 10 most beautiful natural waterfalls with a completely untouched flow free from human industry. Instead of plunging into open air, the massive body of water clings tightly to a near-vertical granite cliff, sliding down its surface in a striking physical paradox. At the base, pure fresh water crashes downward at high velocity and collides directly with the salty waters of the Okrafjorden fjord, forming a rare biological impact zone. In spring, melting snow increases the waterfall's volume to its peak, while in winter, parts of it may freeze into surreal hanging ice formations. Standing at 612 meters tall, it is twice the height of the Eiffel Tower and generates enough air pressure that vehicles passing on Highway E134 shake under shock waves from its mist. Hengifoss is not just a waterfall, but a geological record where each layer of rock and clay represents a different volcanic period. The bright red stripes are oxidized clay formed when iron in the rock reacted with air and the intense heat of molten lava above. At the base of the falls are hexagonal basalt columns so perfectly shaped that many find them hard to believe they are natural. Standing at about 420 feet, the water does not drop into a deep basin, but crashes into a narrow canyon carved by powerful erosion, producing a deep, thunder-like sound. Its water source comes from the high plateau above, fed by meltwater from the massive Vatnajökull glacier. Scientists have discovered fossils of temperate conifer trunks trapped between 5 to 6 million-year-old layers of rock, evidence that this area was once a warm forest before turning into the icy landscape seen today. Ojos de Mar is a system of saline water wells located within the Torre Grande salt flat in the Andes Mountains at an elevation of approximately 13,100 feet above sea level. These formations are not surface lakes, but deep sinkholes sustained by hypersaline groundwater flowing through thick layers of salt. The water appears turquoise due to mineral composition and extreme chemical conditions within the enclosed environment. The system contains stromatolites, which are ancient biological structures formed by microorganisms capable of photosynthesis in water, rich in salt and arsenic. The chemical conditions at Ojos de Mar are used by researchers to simulate Earth environments from approximately 3.5 billion years ago. Alcantara Gorges is known for a rare geological mechanism that forms a volcanic gorge on the island of Sicily in Italy, unlike most gorges created by long-term water erosion. The entire structure forms when basalt lava at roughly 1,000 degrees Celsius flows into the valley and cools rapidly upon contact with the Alcantara River. Uniform thermal contraction causes the lava to fracture along geometric planes, producing stone columns, mainly in hexagonal and pentagonal shapes, with nearly identical dimensions. These columns stand tightly packed in vertical arrangements, sometimes bending or tilting slightly, reflecting variations in cooling speed and internal pressure within the original lava flow. River water running through the gorge maintains a very low temperature year-round, reaching only about 46 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit in summer, due to constant shade and contact with cold basalt rock. Namaqualand is a vast, arid region stretching along the west coast of South Africa and Namibia, where semi-desert climate conditions dominate most of the year. The phenomenon that gives Namaqualand global recognition is the desert bloom, during which plant species flower simultaneously after rare winter rainfall events. Under normal conditions, the landscape consists mainly of gravel sand and low vegetation, with low precipitation levels and strong temperature fluctuations. In spring, moisture stored in the soil activates dormant seeds, producing extensive flower carpets across large areas, while the environment remains fundamentally desert-like. Namaqualand records approximately 3,500 plant species, with more than 1,000 classified as endemic, and the bloom period lasts only a few weeks before rising temperatures cause the flowers to wither rapidly. Barna Hills is known as a pathway to the clouds, combining dramatic mountain landscapes with classic European-style architecture. It is one of the few places on Earth where you can experience all 4 seasons of spring, summer, fall, and winter within just 24 hours. At an elevation of about 4,880 feet, this former tropical rainforest plateau now hosts massive stone castles rising on steep mountain ridges. The image of 2 giant moss-covered hands lifting a golden walkway above the clouds creates a surreal scene that appears ancient and partly reclaimed by nature. Deep inside the mountain, at over 3,200 feet, is a 330-foot wine cellar, carved through solid rock by the French in 1923. The Corinth Canal is an artificial waterway in Greece that cuts across the Isthmus of Corinth and connects the Aegean Sea with the Ionian Sea. The structure was created by cutting through a massive limestone formation, forming 2 vertical rock walls rising about 207 feet above a narrow water corridor. Engineers excavated down to a depth of about 207 feet and removed millions of cubic meters of rock to create a channel roughly 79 feet wide, separating the Peloponnese from mainland Greece. The canal allows vessels to shorten their routes by hundreds of miles compared to sailing around the peninsula. Due to its limited width, most modern container ships cannot pass through, and the canal mainly serves tourist boats, sailing vessels, and small cargo ships. At both ends of the canal, submerged bridge systems lower roads and vehicles to a depth of about 39 feet to allow ships to pass. Burano is a small island near Venice, distinguished by rainbow-colored houses reflecting on the canals, creating a surreal visual landscape amid Italy's coastal waters. The island does not rest on solid ground, but is built atop marshy mudflats, stabilized by millions of wooden piles driven deep into the soil to form its foundation. House colors are not chosen freely, but follow regulations based on strong light wavelengths, enabling fishermen to locate their homes in dense fog. If a resident wishes to repaint, they must submit a formal request and may only choose from a pre-approved palette provided by local authorities. With an area of just about 52 acres, Burano once housed over 8,000 people, though the current population is around 2,800. Without any natural freshwater source, sustaining life on a mud-based island remains a remarkable achievement in urban planning and infrastructure. Pinara is distinguished by a massive vertical cliff containing hundreds of ancient tombs carved like a giant beehive, demonstrating the engineering skill and spiritual traditions of the Lycian civilization. The towering red limestone wall rises hundreds of meters and is perforated by more than 900 rectangular niches arranged in orderly rows. Archaeologists still cannot explain how ancient builders climbed sheer rock faces with no footholds to carve tombs positioned dozens of meters above the ground. Although the region is prone to earthquakes, many structures in Pinara remain intact after more than 2,500 years because they were carved directly into solid bedrock. Several cliffside tombs feature stone doors with fake hinges and handles, while the true entrance is often hidden elsewhere or formed by a movable stone slab. The Theatre of Pinara is carved directly into the mountainside with noble tower tombs suspended above or positioned right beside the seating area. Surtsey is the youngest island on Earth, created entirely by a seafloor volcanic eruption and protected strictly as a real-life natural laboratory. The island did not exist before it rose from 130 feet of ocean depth after explosive activity that lasted 3.5 years. Its surface is not soft soil, but hardened lava flows twisted together into strange formations, resembling warped stone sculptures. Just a few feet below the surface, temperatures stay above 300 degrees Fahrenheit, and researchers were once able to cook eggs by burying them in the sand. Geological measurements show that the island is sinking and eroding at an extreme rate, with predictions that it may disappear entirely by the year 2100. Detua Lagoon on Socotra Island is often described as otherworldly, featuring a surreal contrast between silky white sands and flat aquamarine water. The sand here is so fine that you can walk barefoot all day without discomfort, as if stepping on cool flour or soft silk. Though it appears like a refreshing oasis, this region lies within a harsh desert climate, where summer temperatures can exceed 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Beneath the mirror-like surface, hundreds of venomous stingrays bury themselves in the soft, white sand, turning every step into a calculated risk. Just above the lagoon rise cracked limestone cliffs, where dragon's blood trees grow umbrella-shaped and known for secreting deep red sap that resembles human blood. When the tide recedes, the ground reveals swirling sand patterns that reshape the entire landscape every few hours, like a moving maze. Whitehaven Beach consistently ranks among the most beautiful beaches in the world due to its rare geological and physical characteristics. Although located on an island formed entirely from volcanic rock, the sand at Whitehaven is nearly pure silica at about 98%, with extremely fine grains that absorb almost no heat. This unique sand does not absorb heat at all, allowing you to walk barefoot comfortably even when the outdoor temperature reaches 100 degrees Fahrenheit without feeling any burn. At Hill Inlet, sunlight reflects off the pure white seabed, to create vivid turquoise water patterns that shift with the viewing angle. Whitehaven became the perfect setting for the legendary scenes in the fifth installment of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Hanging Temple is the only structure on Earth directly anchored to the vertical cliffs of Mount Heng and was once listed by Time magazine among the world's 10 most dangerous buildings. The entire multi-ton structure has no foundation and is instead embedded into the rock face using cantilever beams made of dense spruce wood sourced from deep forests. Built within a narrow canyon, the temple receives only about 3 hours of sunlight per day, reducing exposure to rain and slowing down natural erosion. Located 160 feet above the ground, the temple contains 40 chambers connected by narrow wooden walkways that hold over 80 heavy religious statues. It is the only known temple where Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism are all worshipped together, with statues of Buddha, Laozi, and Confucius placed side by side. Sridharangaviti is considered the most isolated lighthouse in the world, standing on top of a basalt pillar rising about 118 feet above the stormy Atlantic Ocean. Built in 1939, it was once accessible only by climbing the vertical rock face by hand while winds and waves battered the base. The site is also a refuge for puffins and other seabirds nesting in narrow rock crevices where wind speeds can exceed 125 miles per hour. The lighthouse itself is a reinforced concrete cube measuring about 13 feet on each side, designed to withstand extreme weather conditions. Factory Butte is an isolated geological formation, rising about 2,000 feet above the desert landscape of Utah and standing apart from surrounding mountain systems. The land around Factory Butte consists of badlands, terrain made primarily of blue-gray shale formed from compressed mud and clay. deposited on an ancient seabed over millions of years. The butte is composed of soft shale rather than hard rock, causing erosion to occur much faster than in limestone or granite mountains. The deep grooves running down the slopes of Factory Butte are produced by rainwater flowing from the summit and carving the weakest paths through the rock structure. Depending on moisture levels and the angle of sunlight, the surface color shifts from neutral gray-blue to steel blue, pale yellow, or deep purple near sunset. Within this dry and nutrient-poor environment, rare cactus species such as right fishhook and winkler foot cactus survive with a distribution limited almost entirely to the area around Factory Butte. Varia is located in northern Iceland and is a geothermal area where heat from magma directly reaches the Earth's surface. The site contains boiling mud pools and fumaroles that release steam and hydrogen sulfide gas, producing a strong sulfur odor. The soil at Varia has very high acidity combined with elevated surface temperatures, preventing higher plant life from growing. This environment supports extremophile microorganisms which are capable of surviving without oxygen or sunlight. Mineral components, including gypsum silica and sulfur, are unevenly distributed, forming gray, blue, yellow, and red color bands across the ground. Geothermal energy from Varia and surrounding areas is harnessed by humans to generate electricity and supply hot water for daily use. Positano stands out with the world's only vertical city design, where multicolored homes stacked dramatically on sheer cliffs overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. This town ranks among the steepest on Earth, with elevation rising from sea level to over 1,300 feet within just a few hundred square yards. Houses here are built by carving horizontal foundations directly into the limestone walls, creating solid structures anchored to the steep terrain. To preserve its iconic look, all house repainting must follow a strict palette of pink, yellow, and terracotta to ensure harmony with the natural surroundings. The main beach features black sand and volcanic pebbles, remnants of violent eruptions from Mount Vesuvius in the past. In Positano, the idea of strolling does not exist since everything involves climbing, and an average resident may ascend the equivalent of 50 floors a day just to shop or return home. Lake Bled is a glacial lake located in the northwestern mountainous region of Slovenia and formed after the retreat of a massive glacier at the end of the last ice age. The lake basin originated from a depression carved by glacial erosion and later filled with meltwater and precipitation. Despite its alpine location, Lake Bled reaches summer water temperatures of about 79 degrees Fahrenheit due to geothermal hot springs beneath the lake bed. At the center of the lake stands a natural land mound rising above the water surface, forming the only natural island in Slovenia. This island hosts the Church of the Assumption of Mary, a long-standing religious structure associated with the lake's core. Access to the church requires climbing 99 Baroque stone steps, constructed in 1655, leading directly from the shoreline to the island's summit. Trakai Island Castle is built on a natural island within Lake Galve, a lake surrounded by 21 islands formed by ancient glacial activity. The entire fortress is constructed from millions of red bricks, many of which increase structural hardness after long exposure to the lake's cold and humid conditions. The surrounding landscape replaces solid ground with continuous water surfaces and small islands covered by coniferous and broadleaf forests. Historically, Trakai Island Castle functioned as a defensive fortress, and royal residents remaining isolated from the mainland and connected only by a long wooden bridge. During winter, when Lake Galve freezes, thick enough access to the castle becomes possible by walking or skating directly across the ice. Today, the castle is used by the Lithuanian government as an official site for receiving visiting kings, queens, and heads of state. Đurđević Tara is a symbolic bridge of Montenegro constructed from 1937 to 1940, spanning the Tara River Canyon, often called the Grand Canyon of Europe for its dramatic depth. During World War II, the central arch was destroyed in 1942 to stop the advance of fascist forces. The bridge consists of 5 reinforced concrete arches, seamlessly anchored between steep limestone cliffs, in a stunning display of engineering. From the deck, you're standing about 560 feet above the ground, roughly the height of a 50 to 60-story skyscraper. The Tara River below is considered one of the cleanest in Europe, where people can drink directly from the stream without filtration. Right beside the bridge is one of the world's highest and longest zip lines, letting you glide across the canyon in just a few thrilling seconds. Seljalandsfoss is one of Iceland's most recognizable waterfalls, with a massive water curtain dropping 200 feet between cliffs and green fields. Its water source comes from melting glacier runoff from Eyjafjallajökull, the volcano that erupted in 2010 and paralyzed European air traffic. In the damp crevices surrounding the falls, where mist lingers constantly and sunlight is scarce, ancient species of moss and algae still survive. By walking behind the waterfall, visitors can witness a near-complete circular rainbow thanks to the unique humidity and backlit position. In winter, the site transforms into a frozen structure of nature, with ice stalactites several feet long hanging downward from the cave ceiling. The surreal beauty of Seljalandsfoss was featured in the music video "I'll Show You," helping it gain global fame among younger audiences. Bay of Fires stretches along the northeastern coast of Tasmania and is identified by large granite boulders covered with dense orange lichen. The name Bay of Fires was recorded in 1773 when Captain Tobias Furneaux observed multiple fires lit by the Palawa Aboriginal people along the shoreline. The granite formations date back to the Devonian period, with an estimated geological age between 350 and 400 million years, shaped by persistent wind and ocean wave erosion. The orange color does not come from the rock itself, but from Caloplaca lichen, a living symbiosis between fungi and algae growing directly on the stone's surface. This lichen system survives by using sunlight and atmospheric elements while covering massive granite boulders in a harsh coastal environment. Because the area faces winds directly from the Southern Ocean without crossing other continents, the air at Bay of Fires is recorded as extremely pure. Ghani Gorge contains a basalt cliff formation known as the Symphony of Stones, a hexagonal geological structure recognized by UNESCO as a natural heritage site. The entire cliff formed through rapid cooling of volcanic lava, where basalt contracted vertically and organized into tens of thousands of tightly packed columns. These basalt columns carry massive weight and rise from the ground while also hanging inverted from the canyon rim, reaching heights exceeding 160 feet along the Azat River. The formation creates a continuous natural stone wall with high density and structural stability within the gorge environment. Mineral composition within the basalt causes the cliff surface to shift in tone from dark gray to yellow or brown, depending on the sun's angle. The canyon floor allows direct access to the base of the cliff, where basalt columns with geological ages of millions of years remain structurally intact. Wulong Flying Kiss is an architectural structure combined with a mechanical ride located on Baima Mountain in the Wulong area of China, featuring two giant statues representing a male deity and a celestial maiden. The entire structure has a total weight of about 620 metric tons and is engineered to extend outward over a cliff rising several thousand feet above the valley floor. During operation, the two statues move from a horizontal position to an upright stance and rotate slowly in midair through an internal mechanical system. At the highest point, the statues turn toward each other and form a contact position suspended above the deep gorge below. One operating cycle lasts about 7 minutes, and each observation platform can accommodate between 30 and 35 people at the same time. Chaka Lake is located on the Qinghai Tibetan Plateau at an elevation of over 10,000 feet above sea level and functions as a large inland salt lake. The lake contains extremely high salinity, forming a solid salt crystal lake bed with a measured thickness of up to about 16 feet. Geological surveys estimate that the salt reserves here could supply the entire population of China for approximately 70 to 80 years. Old railway tracks built during the 1950s remain on the lake surface, originally constructed to transport salt from the extraction zone. Several large-scale sculptures in the area are carved entirely from salt and depict religious figures and cultural symbols. Because the water level is usually shallow and the salt crust is firm, people are able to walk directly across the surface of the salt lake. Zizhu Temple is one of the highest altitude monastic complexes in Tibet and is regarded as a central and ancient site of Bon-Yung-Drung Buddhism. The complex is positioned on steep mountain slopes, where buildings are constructed directly on exposed rock outcrops without flat ground foundations. The entire temple area contains more than 70 small structures, including meditation halls, monks' quarters, libraries, and living spaces arranged according to the rugged cliff terrain. The main access route is a gravel path about 7 miles long, where visitors and pilgrims typically leave vehicles at the mountain base and continue on foot or horseback. Upon reaching the upper elevations, you observe 6 surrounding peaks, representing 6 fundamental principles of the material world in Bon teachings. Meteora monasteries are a religious complex built directly atop vertical sandstone pillars with an average height ranging from about 1,000 to 1,300 feet, equivalent to a 100-story building. During the 15th and 16th centuries, the region supported as many as 24 active monasteries, but after war and time, only 6 remain inhabited and functioning. The monasteries were not merely placed on the rocks, but designed as seamless extensions of the stone mass itself, posing a major architectural challenge in the 14th century. Inside the great Meteoron monastery, one room holds hundreds of skulls of former monks as a form of remembrance across centuries. For hundreds of years, the only access to these monasteries was by climbing rope ladders or being hoisted in net baskets pulled up by hand. Predjama Castle in Slovenia is the largest cave castle in the world, constructed directly into the mouth of a limestone cave on a vertical cliff rising 403 feet. The entire rear structure of Predjama Castle relies on a single limestone rock mass with ceilings and pillars formed by natural stalactite formations. The cave system behind Predjama Castle extends for several miles, creating an underground tunnel network connected to the exterior of the cliff. This underground network was used to transport food and supplies during periods of siege. Modern access to Predjama Castle uses a drawbridge, while the original entrances were positioned higher on the cliff to restrict direct access. Large bat colonies inhabit the unrestored cave sections within Predjama Castle as a stable long-term habitat. Mount Roraima is a large sandstone plateau covering about 31 square kilometers and surrounded by nearly 400-meter high vertical cliffs at the meeting point of Brazil, Guyana, and Venezuela. The highest point of Mount Roraima reaches about 2,810 meters above sea level, and the summit plateau is a labyrinth of dark eroded rock formations with deep gorges and small valleys. Due to its elevation and climate conditions, the summit is frequently shrouded in thick clouds and heavy rain nearly every day of the year. About 35% of the plant species on this high plateau are found only here, including carnivorous plants and some endemic frogs, such as Oreophrynella quelchi. Mount Roraima served as an inspiration for Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's novel The Lost World, and appears in the animated film Up. Mammoth Hot Springs is a complex of hot springs formed on a travertine limestone hill located above the Yellowstone supervolcano system in Wyoming. The stepped terraces at Mammoth Hot Springs constantly change shape due to rapid mineral deposition from geothermal water reaching the surface. Each day, the geothermal system releases more than 4,400 pounds of dissolved calcium carbonate, producing rock formations at a rate far faster than most natural stone structures. Hot water carries dissolved limestone upward from underground and precipitates immediately upon contact with air, forming layered travertine terraces along the flow path. Trees exposed to sudden hot water flow become fully coated with minerals, cutting off oxygen and preserving their structure through mineral encrustation rather than burning. The white, orange, yellow, brown, and green surface colors are created by thermophilic bacteria adapted to mineral-rich hot water environments. Geyser geothermal area is the site where the term geyser was named globally to describe hot water, erupting vertically from underground, reaching heights of about 70 to 80 meters. The ground surface in this area contains minerals such as sulfur, copper, and iron, creating a landscape colored in gray-yellow, red-green, and orange. Geyser activity here often intensifies after earthquakes, as newly formed rock fractures allow superheated water to reach the surface more easily. Water pools in the area appear emerald green due to dissolved minerals and depth, while water temperatures usually range from about 176 to 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Around the eruption vents lies a white to gray rock known as geyserite, formed by silica, precipitating from hot water over thousands of years. Certain zones are marked with rope barriers because the thin ground crust can collapse into boiling mud and water beneath. Calcutta is an ancient village built on top of an isolated volcanic tufa block, where its entire settlement has clung to sheer cliffs for centuries without expanding the natural terrain. In the 1930s, the Italian government officially condemned the village and ordered its removal from maps after scientific reports warned that the volcanic base was weakening. Yet the village never collapsed, and by the 1960s, artists and free-living communities secretly moved into abandoned houses and pressured the government to cancel the demolition order. The houses here were not constructed in the usual way, but carved directly into solid tufa rock to create continuous living spaces. Beneath the settlement lies a honeycomb network of interconnected caves running deep into the volcanic block. Vegetation here does not only grow on soil, but also pushes through the tufa rock, with roots releasing organic acids that soften the volcanic stone and tighten around ancient structures like green sculptures. Moon Viewpoint is a rare geological formation where eroded yellow-gray clay hills create a wavy, barren terrain that looks exactly like the surface of the moon. Although located more than 11,500 feet high in the dry Himalayas, this area is actually the remnant of an ancient massive lake. The valley, formed as a clay mountain, was gradually carved down by wind and rain over millions of years, leaving behind sharp ridges like skeletal remains. While most mountain ranges take millennia to shift form, this landscape can change visibly after just one heavy rainstorm. Despite its lifeless appearance, the site is home to 32 cactus species, especially the San Pedro cactus, which contains hallucinogens used in spiritual rituals by local tribes. Records show that astronaut Neil Armstrong named the site after visiting in 1969, saying it looked almost identical to the Moon's surface. Wolf Creek Crater is a well-preserved meteorite impact crater located in the desert region of Western Australia and formed approximately 300,000 years ago. The crater measures nearly 1 mile in diameter and is surrounded by a raised rim about 82 feet high, created when an iron meteorite weighing tens of thousands of tons struck the Earth. Despite its clear geological form, Wolf Creek Crater was not recognized by the modern world until 1947, when it was identified from the air. It is one of the few large impact craters on Earth where physical fragments of the meteorite are still found at the site. The interior of the crater retains moisture more effectively than the surrounding desert, allowing eucalyptus trees and dense shrubs to grow inside the basin. The site gained wider public attention after serving as the setting for the horror film Wolf Creek, released in 2005. The Buddha of Jiashui is a Buddhist statue carved directly into a limestone cliff in China, standing at approximately 78 meters tall and recorded as the tallest cliff-carved Buddha statue in the world. The head section measures more than 65 feet in length, with ears reaching about 23 feet, positioned according to the natural geometry of a steep mountain slope. Although surface weathering suggests great age, the carving of this statue began around 2001 through the work of local artisans and community support. Facial features are carved directly from solid limestone using existing rock surfaces rather than assembled or added construction materials. The statue was not built upward from a base, but formed through a subtractive carving process in which large volumes of ancient limestone were removed to reveal the figure within the cliff. Tumpak Sewu is a rare semicircular waterfall system where hundreds of individual streams form a continuous water wall spanning nearly 180 degrees. These water flows plunge from a height of about 390 feet into a deep and narrow canyon below. The canyon walls are formed from layered volcanic ash and sedimentary rock, allowing water to flow both across the surface and emerge directly from internal rock channels. Due to extremely high water mist density combined with confined canyon geometry, the site records the appearance of multiple layered rainbows at the same time. Tumpak Sewu is located beneath Mount Semeru, the tallest and still active volcano on the island of Java. Reaching the canyon floor requires descending bamboo ladders attached to steep rock walls that remain constantly wet and moss-covered. The Statue of Unity is located in the middle of the Narmada River and stands at a height of 182 meters, making it the tallest statue in the world today. The monument depicts Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, a historical figure who played a central role in unifying more than 500 princely states into modern India. The structure uses approximately 12,000 copper panels on the exterior and 2 separate reinforced concrete cores inside, allowing about 67,000 tons of concrete and steel to remain structurally stable. Part of the metal used in the foundation came from iron farming tools donated by farmers across India and melted down for reuse. Inside the statue's chest is an observation deck that can accommodate about 200 people, accessed by high-speed elevators installed within the statue's body. The entire monument was completed in about 46 months, and its copper exterior is expected to oxidize over time, gradually changing from bronze to green. Saint-Malo is a coastal city with extreme tidal variation, where sea levels can change by up to 43 feet between the highest and lowest tides. The historic old town of Saint-Malo is completely enclosed by massive stone ramparts built from grey granite and designed to withstand ocean waves and artillery fire. Along the base of the walls, thousands of dark oak stakes are driven deep into the sand to function as defensive obstacles during high tide. During the 17th and 18th centuries, Saint-Malo served as a base for privateers officially authorized by the French crown to attack enemy ships, giving rise to its pirate reputation. About 80% of the city was destroyed by bombing in 1944 and later rebuilt stone by stone to preserve its historical layout. Today, Saint-Malo continues to operate as a strategic harbor where modern military and commercial vessels can dock directly beside the ancient walls. Kerid crater is a lake formed inside a volcanic collapse, estimated to be about 3,000 years old, recognized for its perfect funnel shape and extremely rare, bright red crater walls. This vivid red coloration comes from lava rock, rich in iron that oxidized immediately upon exposure to air during the eruption. The crater measures roughly 180 feet deep, about 560 feet wide, and nearly 900 feet in circumference, with water levels that can fluctuate between 23 and 46 feet without any rainfall. In 1987, singer Björk turned this site into a floating stage for a water concert as she performed on a raft in the middle of the lake while the audience stood along the steep crater walls surrounding it. Glufrabuie is known as the Canyon Dweller because this large waterfall disappears completely behind a narrow rock fissure and only becomes visible when you step deep inside the moss-covered walls. Because it sits in a dark, humid environment, constantly filled with mist, the rock surfaces around it stay covered year-round in thick moss that looks like a natural velvet carpet. It is one of the rare waterfalls in the world that cannot be seen in full from the main road outside. At the base of the falls lies a large flat rock where visitors often stand amid the mist to capture dramatic photos with the plunging stream directly behind them. Civita di Bagnoregio stands on top of a steep, tough plateau in the Lazio region and was established as a fully isolated medieval settlement above the surrounding terrain. The volcanic tuff foundation has been continuously eroded by wind and rain for centuries, gradually weakening the landmass supporting the village. Access to Civita di Bagno Reggio is limited to a single concrete pedestrian bridge approximately 980 feet long, spanning a deep ravine with no vehicular routes. Ongoing landslides along the plateau edges continue to reduce the village area, placing the entire settlement at risk of eventual disappearance. Aragonese Castle stands on a separate volcanic rock island in the Bay of Naples and is formed on a trachytic lava dome created when viscous magma was forced vertically upward from the sea and solidified. This volcanic mass has nearly 90-degree vertical cliffs and provides the natural foundation for the entire fortress above. The castle is connected to Ischia by a stone bridge approximately 722 feet long, while large tunnels and windowed passages were hand-carved through the volcanic rock centuries ago. At the top of this hardened volcanic structure, gardens with olive trees, grapevines, and native plants persist on a thin layer of accumulated soil. Salto del Agrio is a waterfall formed within the Copperhue volcanic system, where the Agrio River carries highly acidic water through a basaltic landscape in Neuquén, Argentina. The waterfall drops from a height of about 115 feet into a basin lined with hexagonal basalt columns created by rapidly cooled lava. The river displays orange and yellow tones due to high concentrations of dissolved iron and sulfur in the water. Vatnajökull is the largest glacier in Europe by volume, covering about 8% of Iceland's land area, and recognized by UNESCO for its geological value. Beneath the thick ice lies an active volcanic system, creating direct interaction between magma and glacial ice. During eruptions, volcanic heat melts ice from below and triggers glacial outburst floods known as geological that move into lower regions. On the glacier surface, you can observe white ice fields intersected by black volcanic ash deposited from past eruptions. Deep crevasses, ice towers, and natural ice caves continuously form and disappear according to seasonal and temperature changes. Surrounding Vatnajökull are extensive black sandur plains formed over time by volcanic sediments and glacial floodwaters.